The Mary Celeste was not found as a blood-soaked ghost ship. It was found as something more unsettling, a working vessel, still carrying its cargo with nobody aboard. The lifeboat was gone. The last surviving log entry placed the ship near the Azores, and after that the record becomes a gap. That gap is where the legend grew. Newspapers suggested murder. Later retellings added missing blood, mutiny, pirates, and an almost supernatural disappearance. But the real case is stranger in a quieter way. The surviving evidence does not give us a solved mystery. It gives us a ship that may have been temporarily abandoned, a sequence that can be reconstructed only in probabilities, and 10 people whose final fate is still unknown. This is what the famous ghost ship story gets wrong. On November 7, 1872, the American merchant brig Mary Celeste left New York bound for Genoa. Her master was Captain Benjamin S. Briggs. His wife Sarah and their young daughter Sophia were aboard, along with the ship's crew. Source accounts differ in how they enumerate the crew, but the total number of people aboard was 10. That detail matters because the Mary Celeste was not an abandoned wreck drifting out of control from the beginning. It was an ordinary commercial voyage with an experienced captain, a family on board, and a cargo of roughly 700 barrels of industrial alcohol. Most of that cargo would still be in the hold when another ship found her. The surviving record is incomplete. The original log was later lost, and what remains is a transcription of the final entries. The last surviving entry was made on November 25 near the island of Santa Maria in the Azores. On December 5, the British brig Dei Gratia came upon the Mary Celeste about 400 miles east of the Azores. From a distance, the vessel appeared to be drifting without a clear response. When the boarding party climbed aboard, they found a ship that was empty, but not obviously destroyed. The lifeboat was missing. Personal belongings remained. One pump had been disassembled, and water was reported in the lower hold. Yet the ship was still seaworthy enough for the Dei Gratia crew to sail her toward Gibraltar. This is the central contradiction. If a violent crime had happened on deck, where was the clear evidence? If the ship was sinking, why was so much of the cargo still there? If everyone had died, why was the lifeboat gone? The facts do not point neatly to one cinematic explanation. They point to a decision made under uncertainty. The first public versions of the story were not neutral evidence reports. A March 1873 New York Times item repeated suspicions involving murder, blood, and alcohol. Those suspicions are valuable for understanding how the story was framed, but they do not prove that blood was found or that murder occurred. That distinction is easy to lose. Once a dramatic possibility appears in print, later writers can repeat it as if it were an observation. A rumor becomes a detail becomes a scene, and a scene becomes the version most people remember. The Mary Celeste also acquired a literary afterlife. In 1884, Arthur Conan Doyle published a story using the name Mary Celeste. It was fiction, but it helped transform a sparse maritime case into a dramatic legend. The spelling itself became part of popular memory. So when a modern retelling describes blood on the rail, a feast left untouched, or a perfectly preserved supernatural tableau, the first question should be, is this in the surviving record, or did it arrive through the story's later adaptations? The cargo created another line of speculation. 9 red oak barrels were later reported empty, and investigators considered whether alcohol had leaked or produced dangerous vapor. Later experiments and reconstructions proposed that an alcohol vapor scare, or a small explosion without a fireball, might have frightened the crew. That is a theory, not a finding. The experiments show that a frightening pressure event was physically possible under some conditions. They do not show that such an event happened aboard the Mary Celeste. No surviving witness can confirm the sound, the timing, or the crew's reaction. This is the pattern repeated across the case. A plausible mechanism is not the same as a documented event. A ship can carry volatile cargo without the crew abandoning it. A pump can be disassembled without proving a dangerous leak. The evidence supports questions, not certainty. One evidence-led reconstruction begins with navigation. A faulty chronometer may have placed Briggs farther west than he believed. A later reconstruction found that the Mary Celeste could have drifted without a crew from the last logged position toward the area where the Dei Gratia found her. In that model, the crew did not disappear in a single impossible moment. They made a temporary abandonment decision. Rough seas, uncertain water levels, the disassembled pump, and concern about the cargo could have made the ship seem unsafe. The lifeboat might then have remained attached by a line, or the crew might have expected to return. That sequence is not proven. It is simply more compatible with several observations at once. The missing lifeboat, the ship's overall condition, the pump, the remaining cargo, and the possibility of an uncrewed drift. The tragedy is that a temporary decision can become permanent very quickly at sea. A line can part. Weather can separate a small boat from a larger vessel. A navigational error can turn a short evacuation into a disappearance. The records never tell us which of those steps occurred. It is also important not to overread the word seaworthy. A ship can remain capable of sailing and still feel unsafe to the people standing on it. A little water in the hold, a pump that is not ready, uncertain weather, and volatile cargo can create a crisis before the hull is visibly failing. The Discovery crew's ability to move the vessel later tells us that Mary Celeste was not an obvious wreck. It does not tell us what Briggs believed in the moment he ordered or allowed an evacuation. The Gibraltar salvage hearing did not establish foul play. That does not mean the authorities solved the case, and it does not prove that every rumor was false. It means the surviving evidence did not meet the threshold for a clear criminal explanation. There is no confirmed record that pirates boarded the ship. There is no verified blood trail that explains a massacre. There is no established evidence that the captain staged a fraud or deliberately abandoned the vessel. Those ideas belong in the category of speculation, not fact. Even the later claim that a wreck found in 2001 was the Mary Celeste did not settle the mystery. The identification was disputed, and it does not answer what happened to the people in 1872. The most honest ending is also the least satisfying. The records do not close the final fate of Captain Briggs, his family, or the crew. 10 people left New York. A vessel was later found without them. The ocean kept the final scene. The Mary Celeste is often called a ghost ship because the label promises a supernatural answer. But the documented case does not require ghosts. It requires only imperfect information, a dangerous environment, and a decision made before anyone could know how bad the situation would become. That is why the story still works. Not because the evidence proves a haunting, but because the evidence stops just before the explanation. Every theory fills the silence for a moment, and then the same questions return. Why leave a seaworthy ship? Why take the lifeboat? And why did nobody come back? The Mary Celeste was found adrift, but that word should not make us imagine a perfect frozen scene. It was a vessel with damage, uncertainty, and an absent crew. The mystery is not that history forgot one dramatic detail. The mystery is that the surviving details almost fit together and then fail at the final step. If you want another case where the evidence and the legend pull in different directions, watch our investigation of the Flannan Isles lighthouse keepers. The link is in the description. The Mary Celeste was not a solved ghost story. It was an unresolved maritime disappearance, later enlarged by headlines and fiction. The facts are enough to be haunting without adding details the record never gave us.